little bit more. That's fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for being here. And I want to welcome everybody else that is joining us today for today's expedition event with Seabourn Cruises. It's going to be a fantastic, at least hour. The first good 30 minutes of our event today is going to be a fireside chat style between me and Mark and Jesse. We're going to talk about, I have a couple of questions that I've prepared for Mark so that we can make this very, very interactive and very dynamic. I want to make sure that you guys all understand that you might have joined several virtual events from different agencies, different cruise lines, whatever in the past. We do this very differently, right? We want to make this very interactive. This is the space and an opportunity for us to interact with each other, to express our great experiences or bad ones, right? But to ask Mark and Jesse that they're obviously experts on the Seabourn brand. Well, we are experts at we like to say that we are experts at the client. We know exactly what it's the best thing for our clients. We want to make sure that we provide the best service and the best alternatives for our clients. And we're also very, very, very well educated and versed in each one of the different cruise lines that we represent. But of course, we have Mark and Jesse here that work directly for Seabourn Cruises. Mark is specifically leads the expedition side for Seabourn. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we want to make this very dynamic. So there is a chat box at the bottom center of your Zoom screen. Feel free to type your questions as we go. If you feel it's okay for us to wait till the end of the event to then go through your questions. If we're talking about something that and you feel that is something worth interrupting for because you want to you want us to dig more into that question, please go ahead, unmute yourself, interrupt. We want to make this that friendly, that dynamic, so that so we can get to all the questions. That's the point. So for the first 30 minutes, at least, it's going to be me asking most of the questions, and then at the end of the event, we're going to open up for everybody else to also unmute and then make it even more interactive at that point. I do have some images that I'm going to show and share with you at one point throughout the event, but I'll only do that whenever I feel there's something worth necessarily showing an image for. Aside from that, it's just going to be a conversation. Also, during the event, Denise, who you might see waving right now, she is going to be pushing some polls because we want to know who's attending the event. We want to know a little bit about you as well, so that we can also gear the conversation in that direction. For example, because we do that, I know that David, how you doing, David? Dushen, how are you? How you doing?
We have clients here.
Exactly, we do. And David, for example, we already know that David is an avid photographer, or I'm sorry, probably a professional photographer, right? So I know we're going to want to ask some questions about his possibilities and how well would Seabourn Expeditions be, for him to be able to take pictures and so forth. So this, just like you just had in your screen, a little pop-up that says, this one particularly is, have you ever done business with Luxury Cruise Connections? So based on the results so far, 52% of you have not, 54% of you have not, 52% have not, 48 of you have. So that's great. That means that at least half of you guys have never done business with us in the past. And hopefully after you get to know a little bit about us as well, then you have an opportunity to know what we do and the amazing magic that we pull for our clients. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and let me just share these results so that you all see. And so without any further ado, let me go ahead and spotlight Mr. Mark Spillane. Let me spotlight Mr. Jesse, and let me spotlight myself. There you go. Hopefully you all can see us in the center screen right now. And so I am Carlos Settery, and I'm the CEO of Luxury Cruise Connections. Today's event, well, formal welcome to all of you that have joined us today. In today's event, you're going to see a lot of people in the screen that are either our clients or people that have been following us through email and have been getting our email communications every so often and decided to join one of our events. That's amazing. So hopefully an opportunity to get to meet us and to know us. Also some Luxury Cruise Connections advisors and concierge members and operations members that are attending today's event for two reasons. One, because obviously we always want to have every opportunity that we have to learn about the product so that we can better advise our clients as well, but also because there's a lot of people here that have done business with some of these advisors in the screen that you see. So there's an opportunity for us to interact with you guys, hear faces, get to know each other a little bit better. Then that's awesome. And also, sometimes there's some particular questions that come about regarding very specific circumstances. So we want to take those offline and make sure that we can take proper care of you. Mark, Jesse, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Well, I can get started here. My name is Jesse Fundora, and I am one of the key account managers for Seabourn based down here in South Florida. And I am the day-to-day contact for Carlos and all of the advisors at Forest. I've actually been with Seabourn since May of 19. And I think our business and personal relationship has only gotten stronger as the years have gone by, even through the difficulties of 20 and into 21. I think we've hung in there together as a team, and by far it is Forest Travel Luxury Cruise Connection is really one of my favorite accounts to work with. I can't say favorite because it's being recorded in case somebody else hears it, but it's definitely the top two. It's a fantastic organization, and whoever works with any of the advisors knows that for sure. So it's a pleasure to be here. We do these from time to time, and it's exciting to be able to share our thoughts and our incredible product with your clients.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Jesse said a couple of times Forest and then some Luxury Cruise Connections. We're basically the same company. Our organization is a multi-brand organization. Luxury Cruise Connections is our client-facing brand for cruises. Forest Travel is our corporate and luxury FIT vacation brand. We also have a hotel-based worldwide land vacation company called Luxury Vacations. We have a private jet aviation charter company called Private Jets, but there's a lot of brands within our organization. So just wanted to kind of clarify that real quick. And Mark, talk to us.
Thank you, Carlos.
How are you?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you all for joining. I know it's a busy time of year. My name is Mark Spillane. I'm the Director of Expedition Sales for Seabourn. Just joined the company back at the end of June. And the time has been flying, like Carlos and I was talking about at the beginning of this. But I've spent almost 10 years focusing on luxury expedition cruising. And I've worked with Carlos and many of the amazing advisors at Luxury Cruise Connections over the years. And I'm excited to be here and share my experience on board Venture. I've spent about 19 days on board the ship, and so I know it very well, and of course know many of the amazing destinations that we'll be sailing to, and I look forward to sharing that with all of you.
That's amazing. And by the way, the reason why you guys are here, just to make sure everybody understands this, we don't just bring anybody on this sort of event. We have very few and limited, very special partners that we deal with. We love doing business with Seabourn because every time we do, our clients just come back raving about the experience, and they refer more clients, and it's just easy for us to do so. And besides the fact that we have an incredible relationship all the way from, different people within the organization, as well as Steve and Josh, the president. I mean, it's just such a close relationship throughout the entire organization that really allows us to create, really pull magic for our clients in many cases. So, it's amazing to do business and to represent and to refer business to a company like you guys, where for sure your core values and what you believe in terms of making an experience for a client a reality matches so well with what our core values are. So thank you very much for being here. Very much appreciate your time. I know it's limited, so without any further ado, let's get started with some questions, shall we? You guys are ready?
Absolutely, yes.
Excellent. So, all right. So we know Seabourn for the longest time. Many of you probably know the brand for the longest time. You've always been in the classic cruising business for years, but then recently, this new luxury expedition wave came about the industry, and Seabourn decided to jump on it. So can you share with us, Mark, a little bit of what is an expedition voyage and what's so special about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are quite a few differences from a typical ocean-going cruise when you're thinking about expedition. And some of these things that I mentioned are what I believe truly make the best expedition experience. Typically smaller ships, Seabourn Venture, which is our current expedition ship, and Seabourn Pursuit, which is our sister ship due out next October next year. They only hold 264 guests, so it's smaller ship experiences. The itineraries are adventurous, so we're looking at the Arctic, the Antarctic, the Northwest Passage, the Amazon, Iceland, these really, remote, amazing destinations to remote bucket list destinations. So it's really going off the beaten path, maybe to some destinations you've never even heard of or have trouble pronouncing, which is always fun, especially up in Greenland. So that's really the main differences. And the itineraries are flexible. A typical ocean going ship, you know which ports you're going to be in, the times you're going to be there. An expedition voyage, you may not know. It may just be Antarctica for, Antarctica expedition for 5 days, or Amazon expedition for 5 days. So it's a bit more off the cuff, and we take advantage of wildlife sightings and weather and ice conditions to bring about this magical experience in these remote destinations.
And I just want to add as well, Carlos, to that although the ships, obviously the Venture is brand new and the Pursuit's coming out, we've been dealing in this market for quite some time. Actually, the Seabourn Quest about 8 years ago was refitted to be able to access Antarctica with actual landings. So these itineraries are not foreign to Seabourn. We're not just learning how to get around them. And we've been in these parts of the world for many of these parts for quite some time. So there's a lot of experience that goes with that as well.
All right. So you basically just decided to build 2 purpose-built expedition ships to make that experience an even better one. And we're going to talk about the ships in a second. I have a question on that in just a sec. Before we do that, can we dig a little bit more into after understanding, okay, so an expedition cruise is for me, why do it with Seabourn? Can you share more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, to build on what Jesse was mentioning, we have years of operational experience with Quest in places like Antarctica, but we have people on our team, our operations team, all the way from Robin West, who's our vice president and general manager of expeditions. He's been in the field for a very long time. He's very well respected. So he curated the perfect expedition experience that just kind of matched with the Seabourn experience that has been so well received on our ocean ships. So it's really about traveling to these remote destinations without compromising on the luxury onboard experience. We took those years of experience operating Quest and also the years of experience on our operations team to design these ships for the perfect experience. And so one of those things, and we'll talk about this as we go into the ships and the itineraries and all that, but one of the best features that really stood out to me, having been on other expedition ships and stepping on Seabourn Venture, was the amount of outdoor space. There's about 30,000 square feet of outdoor space, and from almost every single public space, with the exception of very few, maybe 1 or 2, you can step outside. And that's important when we're in these destinations. You want to be able to get out quickly when we see wildlife or we see some kind of beautiful nature coming up. You want to be outside quick. So it's those reasons that we've purposely designed these ships, and that would be one of the many reasons to do it with Seabourn. And I'll kind of build on that as we talk about some of the other features of the ship and our team and all of that.
Yeah, let's talk about the ship. We talked about 30,000 square feet of outdoor deck space. We talked about the guests. So the picture that you see on the screen right now, that's the Seabourn Pursuit. It's an identical ship to the Seabourn Venture, which is the first ship that came out. Can you share with us when did the Venture come out? When is the Pursuit coming out? If there's any difference between the two of them, a couple of features of the ships.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great, so Seabourn Venture launched her first voyage was July 27th, and she spent the summer up in the Arctic. So visiting places like Svalbard, Iceland, Greenland, Scoresby Sound. Had a really fantastic summer, actually. Wildlife sightings were fantastic. We saw lots of polar bears. Almost every single voyage that we went out, our guests were able to see polar bears. And I'll talk about some of the features as we dive into some of the public spaces that are really unique. And then the Pursuit is due out October of 2023. So her inaugural season itineraries are already published. And basically she's starting in October and will make her way down to Antarctica to start that season in November. So we'll actually have both Seabourn Venture and Pursuit in Antarctica for the 23-24 season.
That's fantastic. We'll talk more about those itineraries in the season a little bit later in our conversation. But can we then talk a little bit more about the public spaces in the ships? I mean, what's so special about them? And I have a couple of pictures here. I can scroll through these pictures as you kind of maybe help us understand what we're looking at.
Absolutely. And I'll mention too, as we go through some photos, some of them are professional photos, but I even included some as we get into the destination of my own personal photos that I've taken to really show you these destinations. But sticking with the ship, we have the landing zones. We have 2 of these on board the ship. They are at the lowest level, and these are where all of our guests will put on their boots if we're in the polar regions and get into the Zodiacs to go ashore. So each suite has its own locker where we put the boots, and the boots are complimentary. They're included. You don't have to order them, rent them, or buy them, or pack them, which is even more important because packing luggage space is at a premium to travel with these to these destinations. So we have them right there on board the ship, and we will invite all of you down to a boot fitting party almost, and you get to try on the boots, make sure you find a good fit for you, and you'll store it there in your locker. So it's very easy to come on through, put on your boots, and head out into the Zodiacs.
And then what are we looking at here?
One of my favorite places, always the food places, always my favorite. So we have a couple of dining venues on board the ship. The restaurant, this is the main dining venue. It's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What's really fantastic, all of our restaurants are open seating, no reservations required, no additional charge restaurants on board. It's all included, which is really important when you're in this flexible expedition environment to be able to come and go as you please. But a really fantastic dining venue, actually pretty good size for the size of the ship. It's really never a wait. You just show up and enjoy whatever meal that you're looking for there.
So no such thing as an expedition without an expedition lounge, huh?
No, and this one's quite beautiful. This is actually a split screen. On the left is a photo I took, and on the right is the rendering. So I just like to show it because, of course, Seabourn, and we're talking about ships and new builds, you see renderings, and sometimes renderings don't look quite like the final product. But with Seabourn Venture, it was quite stunning how they were so accurate in the renderings. This space is really critical. It's like kind of the heartbeat of the ship. It's located on deck 4, which is one deck above the landing zone. So as you're coming back from an adventure ashore, it's a great place to warm up. I could tell you in the Arctic, we had hot chocolate station set up, even some liqueurs there if you wanted to add a little extra something to warm up with. So you can grab a cup and just kind of warm up. And the other great reason it's such a prime location is it's also right behind the restaurant. So it's located in the middle between the restaurant and then the Discovery Center as well, which we'll talk about. And then in the evening here, we do have on board the ship, we have 3 musical entertainment acts, and one of them will be in the Expedition Lounge in the evening. So it turns into more of a venue to share a cocktail with your friends that you've made on board the ship, share stories about what you've done that day. But diving into
the Discovery Center.
The Discovery Center, another key part of any expedition ship. Here is where each day our expedition leader and the expedition team will do a daily recap and briefing. So we'll talk about what we experienced that day, and more importantly, what the plan is for the next day. I had mentioned earlier that it's a flexible itinerary. Well, a lot of the times it's here, especially in the more remote places, where we find out what the plan is for the next day, the location of our landing spot or where the ship's position is going to be, weather conditions, sea conditions, ice conditions. We go through all of that. And then we also let the guests know what time we expect to start operations and kind of the flow throughout the day so that you can plan your day for the next day.
Yeah, some of you here at this event might already know this from either previous events or because you've been to the Antarctica or the Arctic before. But the biggest commonality among all expedition voyages is you don't necessarily have the time that you dock and the time that you depart from every single one of the ports. In fact, you might not even know the names of the ports or places that you're docking, because that's all part of the adventure, right? It's a very, like Mark is saying, very flexible itinerary, because they want to the captain is going to want to maximize the, I guess, possibilities of just having the best possible experience based on weather conditions at the time. And because they're so variable and so unpredictable, there's no way to say this day at this time we're going to be here and then we're going to depart, because it's just, it's just not how it works. Now the colonnade, what is the colonnade?
Yeah, the colonnade, it's another dining venue. It actually has indoor and outdoor seating. So the first photo we're seeing here is the outside part of the colonnade, which has outdoor dining, and the roof that you see there actually has heaters in it. So even when it's in the cooler weather regions, you can still be outside. We also have our pool and 2 hot tubs in the outside area. And here we'll do, on the outside part, we'll do like caviar in the ice, which Seabourn is well known for caviar in the surf in the warmer weather regions. We'll invite guests to throw on their parka and come out here and enjoy caviar, champagne, other drinks, and snacks, and meet with the crew. The captain's usually out there. So really that we use no matter what part of the world we're in. But going inside, then of course you have your indoor dining. This is another venue that's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. During breakfast and lunch, it is more of a self-service style, but there is an a la carte menu at each table. So you can, if you don't want to enjoy the food that's on display, you can just sit down and order off a menu as well. And then in the evenings, it's all menu service for dinner. And a couple of nights throughout our voyage, we will offer Earth and Ocean in the colonnade, which is a dining concept that comes over from our ocean ships and focuses on some really great culinary experiences throughout the voyage. Then we have Seabourn Square. This is kind of a gathering space. We have our coffee shop here. We also have, this is where our reception is, our future cruise desk, so that when you're on board, you can book your next cruise, which of course goes right back to your Luxury Cruise Connections advisor. But here there's a card table. I find a lot of guests were enjoying this maybe on the sea days, reading a book here, enjoying a coffee. There are some pastries to enjoy. In the morning, there'll be continental breakfast items, fresh squeezed juices. And one thing I was impressed to learn when I was on board Venture is we actually roast the coffee right there on the ship. So it's a really fantastic coffee. The bow lounge quickly became my favorite place on board the vessel. It's located all the way forward on deck 6. And you see the row of monitors there. Those are actually live streamed from the bridge. So if the bridge is moving a navigational map or something like that, you see it in real time. And then there's also, of course, weather maps. I was in, the Arctic, and so they had on one of the touch screens the aurora forecast each day, so that the guests could go up there. We could see what are the chances that we're going to see the aurora that night, the northern lights. So a really fun place. And then the expedition team would host navigational Q&A in there, and a really great space. The club, another venue on board the ship. Here we actually do, in the evening times, we have sushi, which of course is complimentary, and that's from 6 to 9. So if you want to dine here, you're welcome to do so. And we'll have one of our musical acts entertaining you while you enjoy the sushi. And the Constellation Lounge is the third lounge that our musical entertainers will rotate through. And this one will do afternoon tea. And then in the evening, it's another lounge to enjoy music. And then again, you can access the outside from this lounge as well.
So big difference from a traditional expedition experience, where those older expedition ships that are not in the luxury space of the expedition world just don't have all these different upscale dining and and entertainment venues throughout the ship. This just adds on to that experience, because there are days that are just not, you're spending time on the ship, even though they're everything that has to do with expeditions is about getting off the ship. But the reality is that that's just not what happens every single time. Sometimes you just have to be on the ship. For example, crossing the Drake Passage, that alone is just a couple of days on board the ship. There's nothing else to do. So
Absolutely, and a lot of the itineraries are very remote, so there will be sea days here and there as well. And now, with Venture, there's no compromise in that luxury experience between all the lounges we just went through, and then of course we have a full spa, salon, and fitness center. The saunas, there's two of them, one in the male, one in the female locker rooms, and they're just as beautiful as they are pictured here. And you have the window, so you can, you can enjoy the giant icebergs floating by as we're sailing. And you're enjoying these amenities. And even from the fitness center, there's an outdoor deck. So again, it's those little things that you may not think are that important until you're actively in one of these amazing destinations.
very cool. And then let's talk about the accommodations real quick.
Yes, so fantastic suites on board. So all suites, all veranda. This is our leading.
This is your entry
category.
level.
Yep, and it's 355 square feet. So it's a great size. Great balcony to enjoy no matter where we are. And then of course you have the fully interactive TV. One thing I wanted to mention too is on the mast of the vessel, we have a Cineflex camera, and it's a very high powered camera that when we see wildlife that's maybe just a little bit farther away from the ship, we can turn it on and zoom into the wildlife and then live stream the live feed to all the guest suites and also to the big screen that you saw in the Discovery Center. So that was really important in the Arctic. Of course, we saw a couple of polar bears up close, but then you see some a bit farther away. So we were able to use the Cineflex camera to get a good look at that wildlife too. The panorama suite's beautiful, probably one of my favorites, just because of how bright and airy it is. It's the only suite that actually has heated floors in the suite and in the bathroom. But you get a full balcony and you get this beautiful living room area with the floor to ceiling windows. And then just to step up from there, we have our penthouse suites. These, again, just a little bit bigger, and you start to get the separation for the bedroom area. Important, for those guests that like to have a little bit of separation from the living room area and the bed. And then stepping up into our signature suites, these are really fantastic. They are located in the aft of the vessel. There's only two of them. And the highlight here is each one of them has a private jacuzzi on the balcony of the ship. So as you're sailing through these amazing destinations, you enjoy your private jacuzzi.
And then this is just insane. What are we looking at here?
So the Winter Garden Suite, I actually, of course, I wasn't staying in one, but I did get to go to one when I was on board and check it out. It's absolutely stunning. It's a 2-story suite. So on the first floor, you walk in and you have your living room, a little kitchen area, and of course a bathroom, and then the balcony. So you can walk right out there. And then on the second story is your bedroom area. Also has a bathroom out there as well. And then you have the 2-story floor to ceiling windows. So much natural light. And again, I mentioned the icebergs, it's one of my favorite things, watching them kind of float by when I'm in these destinations, and the views from this suite are stunning.
That's insane. Amazing. What a beautiful suite. And then what are we looking at here?
So these, yes, I apologize for they're not the most professional in photos, but I mentioned some of them were my own personal ones, but I just had to highlight this because it quickly became my favorite feature and one I've never seen on any other expedition ship. And this is a warming closet. So every suite has one. It's really fantastic. I can tell you, one of my days in the Arctic, I was on the first Zodiac off in the morning. You get wet, it's cold, but that's part of the fun in these destinations. And then I came back, I threw my parka in there, turned it on, went and enjoyed a coffee and then lunch. And by the time they were getting ready to do our afternoon experience, I grabbed it. It was dry, it was warm. I was very happy. And it was really fantastic. Also, we have these great slippers on board. You can throw them there in the bottom as well. So you have nice warm slippers as well. It was a fantastic feature.
Those are the little details that make that experience that much more upscale, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you, I spent a few days on the ship in warmer weather regions as well through the Caribbean, and you could throw your bathing suit in there, your water shoes, whatever, when you come back through the ship, and again, dry and warm. So it works no matter what region we're in.
Amazing. Okay, and now I think very relevant, part of this conversation is to talk about the team. Like,
yes.
That's a big part of what makes the experience so special. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we have the largest expedition team in the space on board Seabourn Venture. The team is 26 people. It's a really fantastic team. I've worked with some of them throughout my career, so I know how good they are. And that's what kind of circles back to what I was mentioning about our shoreside operations team and their experience. They're so well respected that a lot of the best people in the expedition industry, they want to work with us and they want to work with our teams. So on board, this 26-person team is on board every single voyage. So of course in the polar regions, but what's more important and unique and is not a case across every expedition ship is we never compromise on that team. So even when we're sailing through, say South America, as we're heading either up or down the coasts, or we're in, doing the Northwest Passage or Alaska, these voyages all will have this full team of expedition leaders for the guest. And that's the most important thing with these ships. That's what brings these destinations to life. So I was very excited. And when I experienced on board, I could tell you it really makes a difference.
How many expedition experts do you have on a typical?
Every voyage has 26.
Every voyage has 26.
Every voyage, yep. And it's really fantastic because it's having that gives such a wide variety of experts. We have kayaks, and I can talk about those too, but we have two experienced kayak guides that have gone through they've kayaked in the Northwest Passage, in the Arctic, in the Antarctic. So they're bringing our guests to the best places each day that we're arriving. And then of course we have historians, ornithologists, glaciologists. So you really get a full breadth of experience on board the ship.
Okay, and that's very, very special. That really makes a huge difference when it comes to expedition. And what's interesting about expedition cruises with Seabourn is that while these ships have been purposely built for polar regions, like you said before, they're extremely comfortable as well to travel to warmer destinations as well in between the seasons. And we'll talk about the seasons in just a second. And so you're visiting the most amazing ports on destinations that you might already know. So while most people will go to, say, Chile on a typical, classic cruise that you might know about, this ship is going to visit ports that maybe are not so prepared to bring in the bigger ships, that you actually have to get off in one of those ODX to actually explore a little town, a little destination within a country you might have heard of before, but just these are places that really make that experience that much more immersive. That's definitely, like, in between your seasons, those ships are exploring amazing destinations.
Absolutely, and you're exploring with people that know the region, and that's the most important thing. And just to reference, to bring it into perspective, I mentioned 26 people or expedition experts as part of our team. And then if you look at our guest capacity at 264, that's basically a group of 10 that we're going out into Zodiacs, kayaking, that kind of thing. So it really is an intimate experience, and you get a lot of time to interact with these highly knowledgeable people.
Okay. Is this in the higher end of the expedition expert ratio with clients in the industry?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's not a smaller ratio that I know of.
Okay, good. All right, so let's talk about those destinations, and let's talk about some of the typical itineraries that you might do. Let's get started with the Antarctica. So for those that have maybe some of you know this, and this might be very basic for you. Some of you might not know this. Antarctica itineraries are going to run between November and March. Keep me real, Mark.
Yep, absolutely.
So this is what a very extended itinerary in Antarctica would look like. Can you share a little bit what we're looking at?
Absolutely. So I would like to highlight this voyage because I think it's a pretty unique one. The start of every season. So we did this past November 7th. And then for next year, it takes place on October 31st. But for those that have been down to the peninsula before, almost everyone, I don't know of anyone that doesn't want to go back. But if you're looking to go back but experience something a little bit different, we have these itineraries. that this one, we only do one per season, but you get to explore the Chilean fjords with the Antarctic Peninsula. So you kind of get this unique best of both worlds itinerary. So I just always like to touch on it briefly when mentioning
And
Antarctica.
this happens at the very beginning of the season, right?
Exactly, yep. So next year it'll be October 31st.
Okay, and then what about this one over here?
Yes, so then once we get into the season, we typically have two main itineraries. You have the 12-day, which starts in Ushuaia, but of course, in all of our Antarctica packages that start in Ushuaia, our guests actually fly into Buenos Aires, and we have a one-night pre-hotel stay that's included and a charter flight that's included to bring you down to Ushuaia to make it very seamless. And then you'll hop on board the ship. We'll sail down to the peninsula, likely stopping at the South Shetland Islands, which on the map here you see King George Island labeled. And then we'll spend about 5 days exploring the peninsula, of course, doing continental landings, wildlife, penguin sightings, whales, seals, visiting maybe some of the research stations in the area. But as you can see, that's just going back to the flexibility. It's really just a dotted line, and it's back to those experts that we have on board to keep you up to date on what we're going to do each and every day. But a really fantastic itinerary for those that have never been down there and are excited to check off the seventh continent. Most of the time, it's the last one for people.
And then for those that are really into penguins and really taking this experience to another level.
Yes, so we usually have at least 2 of these per season, where we have a 21-day, which you get the Antarctic Peninsula that I talked about, and I'll show you some of the penguins and talk about what you can see where. But the peninsula, you basically get the 3 penguins. You have the Adelie penguins, the chinstrap penguins, and the gentoo penguins. And then on the longer itinerary, you get to South Georgia, where you get the king penguins. The king penguins, of course, are the second largest, so they're about 3 feet tall. And in South Georgia, we have a landing spot called St. Andrews Bay. If you look that up, there's about 250,000 breeding pairs of king penguins. So that's a really fantastic itinerary. As you can see here, I get a lot of questions about what the landing spots look like. A lot of the time you are stepping into water, but that's why we provide the boots, which is fantastic. And you can see the box in the water there, the step getting in and out of the Zodiac. You're sitting on the edge, you just swing your legs around, step on the step, and then you're all set there. So I know sometimes expedition people think you have to be extremely fit to do it. I've been in Antarctica with people in their 80s, late 80s. Actually, I think one gentleman was in his early 90s. And the expedition team is really fantastic to help the guests in and out. And then as you see in the next photo, I believe it is, the beach itself, all the penguins are right there. So you don't have to go on long hikes. You don't have to go, climb mountains to experience this amazing destination.
So there was a question that I think is relevant to this part of the conversation, which is, how are the waters getting there? So that's the famous Drake Passage.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, I want to just be very open about this. Very recently, for those that have been following expedition cruising, there was some news on how rough the waters were last week or 2 weeks ago. But can you give us the true story?
Absolutely, yes. The Southern Ocean, this region, the Drake Passage is well known for being a bit rough, but it's not always rough. I've experienced it extremely smooth. I've experienced it where, yes, we have to take things off the shelves and kind of ride it out for a little bit. But a couple of things I like to always touch on. Venture, the size of Venture, amongst all the ships sailing down there, she is a little bit on the larger side, which gives a little bit more stability. Being brand new, very powerful engines, which allows us to speed up or slow down. Actually, our very first voyage down in Antarctica, we had to speed up and we got back to Ushuaia a little bit sooner. I think we got back the night before instead of the next morning. And that was because we were, of course, the whole the captain, everyone on the bridge is monitoring weather, and they noticed that a storm was starting. So we were able to speed up to bypass the storm. So there is a lot of new technologies that Venture has And then, of course, with our operations experience that we have, we're able to put all that together to provide, the best experience possible. Doesn't mean it's going to be smooth all the time, but it definitely gives us some flexibility in trying to avoid the worst of it.
You got to know that there is a big percentage of adventure in this experience. And by adventure, I mean, there is an unpredictable factor, which is, yes, waters can get rough during the direct passage. But one thing's for sure is the teams at every single expedition company, not just Seabourn, but any expedition company that is reputable, is going to be very responsible to make sure that they don't do anything that they're not supposed to do to make the experience safe. So yes, you got to realize if you're the type of person that gets very, very seasick, then you just got to make sure you take the little bit of Dramamine and whatever, and ride it out. But it is what it is.
And two, looking at a typical itinerary, it's usually scheduled for about 2 days for that crossing, but it doesn't mean it's going to be that rough for the full 2 days. It's usually maybe a 12 to 18-hour stretch if it's going to be bad. But I also wanted to show it can be very nice. Once we get down there, a lot of the photos tend to be gray, but when the sun comes out, it's absolutely stunning down there. And I always have to joke that one of my first times going down there, they said, make sure you wear sunscreen. And I live in South Florida, and I was like, I'm not going to bring sunscreen to Antarctica. And sure enough, I think it was this day that I took the photo. It was beautiful sun. We were out on the snow, and it reflects off the snow, and you get sunburned. So important tip, be sure to listen when they say to wear a little sunscreen down there in the bright sunny days. Yeah.
And then when this ship is not in Antarctica, it's traveling north. So on that way north, well, you're gonna have some amazing itinerary. There's one that I always like to talk about, which is your Amazon itineraries, which I know you probably didn't want to talk about them too much because they're all sold out. So let's not even get people excited about it. But I'm sure there's going to be more coming out for 24. If are they out already, by the way?
There's one going north at the end of the Antarctic season on Venture that is out already, and that's in March, I believe, of 2024. But the ones that we have for next spring, we actually do have a little availability now, because originally Brazil was capping the load factors for us. Like we could only sell 75% of the ship. Those restrictions, and it was COVID related, have now been released. Lifted, yes. For those interested, we do have some space. Now they are going through a bit of a change. I can mention that. We did announce, unfortunately, the port area in Iquitos was damaged, and so the ship cannot turn there anymore. I think it was on Monday this week, we did share with the guest booked that we were going to turn in Santarém. So we're going to focus just on this section between, it's about 250 nautical miles left to the west of Manaus, and then about 250 nautical miles to the east of Manaus. And so we have a really great video that our expedition leader for those voyages put together. And of course, I can share that with all of you, that talks about the itinerary, what to experience, and all of that.
Yeah, well, we hadn't been advertising it a lot because of the capacity limitations. But now that you're saying that there's some new availability, I want to definitely go back and send that to our clients via email.
Absolutely.
Because those are incredible. The demand on those itineraries is fantastic, even if you're not going all the way to Peru. So you're basically going halfway through.
Exactly. Yeah, and we're focusing on kind of that section there. But we'll
experience-wise, it's going to be very similar.
Yeah, and actually, in watching the video and talking to our operations team, they're actually pretty excited about this change, because in the past, I've mentioned the experience of our teams. And the expedition leader for this voyage has been an expedition leader on Amazon itineraries before, and they've had to make similar changes en route. So that really changes up everything, and it lessens the experience, because they have to get back to the turn port. So if there's these big changes during the voyage, it diminishes the amount of time you get to explore. While making this change now, it allows us to really give an immersive experience in the part that we are exploring.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And you have those zodiacs, so get down and explore the Amazon River, see some big dolphins. I mean,
and kayaking. We'll have opportunities to do kayaking as well in the Amazon. So it'll still be a really fantastic itinerary.
That's amazing. Okay, and then let's go up north, and then let's share with our audience a little bit some itineraries up north. Let me share the screen again. So what destinations do you visit up north?
Yeah, so next summer we have some really great itineraries exploring the UK. So once we leave the Amazon, we'll cross over. The top middle photo is actually a couple of voyages kind of done as a back-to-back, but it shows that we're basically going to circumnavigate the UK. And that's in May of next year before we head over into June, where we'll explore Iceland and Greenland. And what's really great is we have Greenland's such a fantastic place, whether you're looking for more cultural experiences, which you will find on the west coast of Greenland, or you're looking for more wildlife, polar bears, these fjords, glaciers, icebergs, that kind of experience on the east coast of Greenland. One of the best voyages that I think we have next summer is the ones that explore Scoresby Sound. Not too many expedition ships go up into there, but it's actually one of the largest fjord systems in the world. We explored it this past summer. We saw polar bears, great kayaking and zodiacs amongst these skyscraper-size icebergs in the water. So it's an absolutely stunning destination. And to pair that with Iceland, which is extremely popular in the last couple of years, is a great combination voyage. And the guests that did that itinerary had a fantastic time. And so, of course, we're doing it again next year. And then as we get into the late summer in August, we will leave the west coast of Greenland and do a Northwest Passage voyage. So again, this is one of the kind of remote bucket list type destinations that we're excited to do with Seabourn Venture, where we'll sail through the Canadian High Arctic, fantastic polar bear sightings, of course, wildlife sightings, a lot of history in the region. And then that voyage ends in Nome, Alaska. And then we'll actually do a pretty cool voyage from Nome to Vancouver. It's the only Alaska voyage that Venture will be doing, and that'll be in September of 2023. And then from there, she's just going to sail south down the west coast of the US and back into Antarctica by November.
I get the Antarctica, but I wanna stop you there for a second, because you know we're just going very quickly through the whole Alaska comment, and the reality is that everybody that has sailed to Alaska before knows that most of the ports that you visit are the typical ports where there's another 1,000 people down there. What you see definitely is crowded with little shops with T-shirts and postcards and whatever, this and that. That's your typical Alaska crew. But when you're doing Alaska with on one of the expedition ships with Seabourn, what you're going to be experiencing is ports that normally nobody else visits, where you get off to truly explore the destination, the wildlife. You're probably not going to find a single T-shirt shop or anything like that. So it's just a very different Alaska experience than what you're used to seeing in any ship.
Absolutely, yeah. And starting from Nome is a pretty unique experience. And this time of year, again, there's so many variables, so you can never promise it, but a great opportunity to see the Northern Lights if the stars align. So a pretty great voyage overall.
And okay, so let's see some images of what we're going to see.
Yeah, so Greenland, the Arctic, Greenland, Iceland. Well, Iceland's definitely gotten a lot more popular, but Greenland specifically, I've seen over the years, there's been a lot of unknowns about what it really is. And kind of back to my earlier comment, no matter what you're looking for, the Arctic, Greenland has it. So these are all photos that were taken from this summer's voyages on board Seabourn Venture. So as I mentioned, whether you're looking for wildlife here, like, of course, the polar bears, the walruses, or you're looking for these dramatic glaciers and icebergs and cultural experiences. I mean, the west coast of Greenland and the cultural villages, the Inuit communities that are there are absolutely fascinating to visit. They're so warm and welcoming. I can tell you in my times that I've spent there, they even offer you local food and cuisine if you're a little on the daring side, if I should say. But they just want to show you their town, and they'll walk right alongside us with our expedition guide showing their town. They always have a cultural center where they'll put on a performance where we get to go and interact with them. It's actually to me, it was one of the most surprising yet enjoyable parts of the west coast of Greenland.
That's very cool. And okay, so we've talked for a while, and I do have a couple more questions I want to ask you, but I also want to make sure that we allow for enough time at the end for some good Q&A. So I want to quickly skip to something very special on the venture and pursuit, which is the submarines. Can you talk a little bit about the submarines?
Yes, absolutely. So we have two submersibles on board. Each of them holds 6 guests, and the operator or the pilot. So that's 7 people altogether. They, of course, are stored on board. We lower them into the water, and we actually drive them away from the vessel. And then the guests that are experiencing the submersible get into a Zodiac, and the Zodiac goes out to the submersible. And then you do have to climb out of the Zodiac onto the top of the submersible and kind of lower yourself in. There's 3 pool ladder type steps to get lowered into the submersible. So it is a little bit more, there's a little bit more agility involved than some of the other experiences, but it is a fantastic experience. It's about a 30 to 45-minute experience, and it is an additional charge. It's one of the few items on board the ship that is additional, and the cost varies based on the destination.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so and last but not least, what's included in terms of no, I'm sorry, it's not what I was going for. What is included on a typical expedition with Seabourn, the gear?
For our polar voyages, so we have our partnership with Helly Hansen. They provide or we provide the parkas. They're really fantastic, and of course, great quality coming from Helly Hansen. Those are complimentary and for you to keep. We also include some other items on our polar voyages. We have a Seabourn beanie cap, which of course is yours to keep, a dry bag to keep any electronics or camera equipment you want to bring ashore, which is yours to keep, and the Seabourn Expedition's water bottle. Of course, being environmentally friendly, we have no disposable plastics on board, so we have these water refill stations around the vessel, so you have that to keep. And then every single suite, which does have to remain on board, is provided a pair of Swarovski binoculars to use throughout the voyage. Really fantastic, high quality binoculars. And then, of course, we started the conversation around the boots, which are also included, but the boots and the binoculars do remain on board the vessel. We
didn't get a chance to really talk a lot about the environmental approach for Seabourn, but I just want to quickly share a real cool fact about the Seabourn ships. In an effort to be very environmentally friendly, I know that you guys basically don't anchor when you go down to the polar regions, some of these places where there's wildlife to be preserved, right? So how do you keep the ship?
Yeah, we have, it's a system called dynamic positioning, and it's really valuable not only to protect and conserve what's below the water, but it allows us to stay in places that maybe even with an anchor due to currents or weather conditions, we wouldn't have been able to stay. But it basically uses GPS and the thrusters to keep the ship exactly in place. It's a really cool feature that the ships have.
Very cool, very cool. All right, awesome. So, well, we went a little bit over time on our fireside chat, but that's okay because we covered quite a bit. So I already have some questions in the chat that I want to start addressing. We did address the first one on the waters and the passage. David. Okay, here's a quick comment that David sent me privately. I've been in Seabourn to Antarctica in 2015, and Drake Passage was to Drake Lake, and the captain was able to arrive in Ushuaia a day ahead of schedule. So just kind of going back to the comment that we were making on, regarding waters. I mean, last 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago, Drake Passage was very rough, right? And we, might have heard about it in the news. But it's a little bit unpredictable. And it's not really necessarily so season dependent. It's just, it can happen at any time. So,
yep.
Okay, and Steve, how many guests can go in the submarine at one time?
So it's, each one accommodates 6, and we have 2 of them. And we
Okay.
can do
And
multiple dives a day. So as long as it's very weather dependent, weather and ice conditions, but as long as everything aligns, we can do multiple dives a day.
can you highlight a little bit on some of the coolest places where you can use those subs?
Yeah, so I mean, the experience varies quite dramatically based on the experience. I've done it in places like the Caribbean, where you can imagine it's absolutely stunning. You have crystal clear blue waters, you have fish, corals. In some of the destinations, there's like shipwrecks that you can explore. I've done that off the coast of St. Kitts. It was really fantastic. And then in the polar regions, the Arctic, the Antarctic, visibility can be a little bit, you're not going to have the clear blue waters, right? Like the Caribbean. But what you're doing is you're exploring and looking at places that some may have never been seen by other people before. So that it's more about going under the water. There are some fish, there's some corals, but it's not as crystal clear and dramatic as, say, the Caribbean. But it's still a really cool experience to say that you've gone under the water.
Yeah, I think that's very subjective. I mean, you might not see the colorful corals like you might see in the Caribbean, but the fact that you're going down so many feet underwater and getting to see, you know, pieces of land and ice that nobody else in the world has ever seen. Yeah, I think that's exciting enough to me.
Oh, it's really cool. It's really cool.
So I got a couple of questions from David. How many landings in Antarctica per day in the same or different locations? Just go one by one, then I'll cover all of them.
That's a great question. So typically, a typical day in Antarctica will have 2 different destinations per day. So we'll arrive at one location in the morning. We'll dispense all the activities, the zodiacs, the landings, the kayaking, the submersible, all of that. And then around noontime or so, everyone will come back to the ship, enjoy lunch while we sail to another destination, and then redeploy everything again in the afternoon. So typically 2 each day you'll have a chance to do.
So I'm going to tell you why David is asking that question. David is a photographer, and he's been trying to find the right experience for him because he wants to be able to have the most amount of time off the ship to be able to take that perfect picture.
And what's great too, as part of our expedition team, we have both a videographer, and their main job is to capture everything that we're experiencing. And they put together a video for all of our guests to enjoy. And then, of course, they have access to it after the voyage. But we also have a photographer as well. And so that, you know, our guests that are really interested in that can connect with them, can do Zodiac cruises with them, can go ashore with them. And then we have a studio on board the ship for editing and swapping photos and all of that. So it really is a great part of the Seabourn experience. Okay.
David, let me know if you have any further questions on that regard. Well, same question with South Georgia and Falkland. How many landings a day? Same thing?
Yes, so same. South Georgia, I think we spend about 3 days there, and we'll do multiple landings as well. And then in the Falklands, it just depends where we are. Like Port Stanley has a little bit more infrastructure. So that, I believe, you can spend as much time off the ship as you want there because there is a bit more of a town to experience.
But on a typical voyage is 1 landing per day, right? You're off the ship once a day.
Twice. Like in Antarctica, it's twice. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon.
1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. And how much time is available on each landing? I mean, I know that you can't predict it and you can't guarantee this. You know, I know for a fact that you can't guarantee how much time you'll leave, but
yeah, there are a lot of variables, but on average, you're probably looking about 1.5 hours to explore, and then head back to either the ship or to do a Zodiac or what have you. But it's usually about 1.5 hours at each place.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a Zodiac cruise too. Some places there are really no places to land. It's more about the Zodiac cruise, which I actually enjoy just as much, if not more, than the landings.
Okay. Do you have single supplement offers or dates where are convenient for solo travelers?
Yeah, so that's always a tricky thing with expedition because of the size of the ships being so small. There's not usually too many options where it's less than 200%. There might be some, but they tend not to be in the polar regions. But for that, we just have to go through and try to find a voyage that has the best option.
Okay. Yeah, the most likely, David, those are not going to be on the peak of the season and either.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, the Arctic, you might have better chances than the Antarctic, but.
Does Deck 10 have glass wind protection wall that shields photographers from some wind and inclement weather, and where photographers can have an almost unobstructed view?
Yes, so on the upper decks, they do have that. And then for on deck 6 in front of the bow lounge, it's all open. So, if there is no bad weather and it's beautiful, you can actually get out there and you have a really fantastic view as you have the whole bow of the ship open.
And okay, great. And then a question on Northeastern Passage. Is it smooth?
Yeah, so the Northwest Passage, it's not like going through the Drake Passage or anything like that. That's overall, I mean, of course, everything's weather dependent, but it's overall much smoother.
Okay. Is there anywhere to smoke on the ship?
Yes, so I believe it's deck 9 in the aft near the sky bar. There is an outdoor smoking section.
There's no cigar lounge, right?
No cigar lounge, no.
Okay. Do you have to be fit to be to go on an expedition?
No. I'm not the most fit person in the world, but what I'll say is, it just depends on your own comfort levels. I've seen people that, like I was saying earlier, getting it out of the Zodiac is pretty simple. You don't have to be able to climb the mountains to experience these destinations. The wildlife is right there at your footsteps. The amazing scenery is right there. Places like Antarctica, the wildlife is never ending, even from on board the ship. You're seeing whales from the ship. You're seeing penguins swimming and porpoising, or it's jumping out of the water. These destinations are so remote that they kind of come alive around you. So no matter where you are, you can experience and enjoy it. So it really is just your own comfort level in what you're willing to do.
Alan, you got to be at least fit enough to be able to get in a Zodiac. And let me just put it this way: if you can get yourself in a hot tub, in a bathtub, you can get yourself into a Zodiac. Does that make sense? Basically, same logistics.
Yeah, no, it's fair. And the great thing, again, going back to the design of the ship, is the Zodiacs, when they're up against the shell door, the top of the Zodiac is level with the shell door. So you're just stepping onto the Zodiac and then a few inches down into it. And of course, you have 4 people from the ship helping you in and out. It's a pretty smooth process.
Okay, good to know. Can you talk a little bit about the different polar classes? We said that both Venture and Pursuit are PC6, meaning Polar Class 6. What does that mean, and how does that compare with other expedition ships?
Yeah, so that with all the new build expedition ships you're seeing, with the exception of one that I can think of, they're all in that PC6 category. And there's different ratings. There's some that's like 1A. So they're just all it is a rating for the hull of the vessel to allow us to operate in these ice conditions. So to do the Arctic, the Antarctic, the Northwest Passage, the big PC6, the hull has been reinforced and allows us to operate basically within first year ice, fast ice. Of course, when you're talking ice that's decades old, that's really, really thick, no ship can really operate in those regions. But to do the polar regions, the Northwest Passage during season, the ship has been reinforced and designed to operate in that manner.
So the lower the number, the thicker ice the ship can go into, and so in this case, Venture and Pursuit are PC6. Most of the new luxury expedition ships are within that category, but there are some that vary. So like it depends, right? Some people
and there's different scales. So there's at least 2 that I know of. So you just have to kind of understand what the scale is saying to line it up to the ship. Basically this ship can operate pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's not an icebreaker, but we can put the ship into the ice. I'll give you an example. We did an inaugural ceremony when we first got to Antarctica. And there's some videos and pictures on our social media pages, Seabourn social media on Facebook, where we actually drove the ship into the ice and then opened the shell door, and our guests were able to walk right out onto the ice. So it still has all of those capabilities. It's just not technically classified as an icebreaker.
Cool.
Yeah.
And David is asking, how do I hook up with going on a photographer Zodiac? Can we arrange that in advance, or does he have to arrange that while on board?
Yeah, on board the ship is really the best way to go about it, because we never know exactly what the photographer is going to be doing, but they are such great people and they love being with our guests that yes, as soon as you're on the ship, just speak to the expedition leader and they'll connect you with the photographer, and they'll do as much as they can for you on your experience.
Cool. And we have to make a couple of calls before that sailing to make sure that David's going to be well taken care of with that expedition, with that photographer. Then we can.
Absolutely, and you can let us know, and we'll let our operations team know. We'll communicate with the ship. We can handle that.
That's amazing. And, I think that's one of the key things with when you're sailing with Seabourn is how much you want to know about each one of your guests prior to embarkation, so that you can cater that experience properly. Many of our guests have been on your classic ships, and if you're translating what that experience is into expedition and probably taking it even beyond that, because it's just such a small ship, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's going to be extremely happy. I want to point something out, which is, sometimes you feel that, because it's luxury cruise experience, then, my expedition experience is going to be compromised. And I don't think that's the case with Seabourn Expedition, right?
No, not at all. And that's what's really fantastic. I mean, you're going out, you're experiencing a true expedition experience ashore. You're just now coming back to the comforts of the Seabourn experience. And it really means that you can now travel to the ends of the earth without compromising on the luxury, hotel side of the expedition experience.
Okay, excellent. All right, what other questions do we have out there? What else do you want to know about Seabourn Expeditions?
Carlos, can I just say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you offer camping on ice experiences in Antarctica?
So we currently do not, but I know it's something that our team is reviewing. So more to come on that. More to come.
Okay. And do you separate groups randomly or by ability? If you have a group of hard chargers, do you pair them up with, more people with the same ability, or how does it work?
Yes. So originally, it's just kind of done before the guests get on board. They divide everyone up into groups. But then the expedition team, again, what's great about being out with a smaller ship and such a large expedition team is they'll absolutely kind of accommodate different abilities to experience these destinations. I saw it happen firsthand in when I was on the ship and going ashore, and they're really great at accommodating that.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and ask Jesse this question. Jesse, we talked a lot about expedition and we talked a lot about those experiences. Let's talk a little bit about the relationship between Luxury Cruise Connections and Seabourn. We're gonna catch you off guard here with a tough question. See if you can figure this one out. Is there any reason in the world why anybody should be booking directly with Seabourn as opposed to making the reservation through an agency like Luxury Cruise Connections? Be honest.
I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason that would happen is if you don't know about Luxury Cruise Connection. Obviously, that's probably the only way. If you know one of your advisors, or if you know the company, there shouldn't be any reason. I mean, this is how I think of it. Yes, I work for Seabourn, and I never want to discourage any type of bookings. Seabourn booking is a Seabourn booking. However, you also have to realize that we have certain timelines where our company is open, certain days. We're not open on Sundays. There are certain things that travel advice that Luxury Cruise Connection actually can offer as amenities that we can't do directly. I think there's always somewhat of a misconception where the guests think that if they've booked once directly before, they have an in, or they know they're getting a better deal by just booking with us directly. And the truth is that that's not the case. You are always going to be going through a better route when you're working with an experienced travel advisor, because they just know, they've been there. I can also add that I want to say just about every advisor at your office has been on Seabourn. They've either visited the ship here in Miami, or they've actually sailed on as well. So they're not going by videos, or they're not going by calling me and saying, hey, Jesse, here's a question. I mean, they're answering these questions on their own because they've been on. And not just with Seabourn, they've also been on all the other brands. So, unlike me, I've only been on Seabourn, I can give you my opinion. They give you the true opinions on other brands and how we compare. So unless you have no idea who Luxury Cruise Connection is, I would say there really is no reason why you should not be booking with them. And again, you have a direct line to us. And I just want to say quickly that it's so direct that our president has been at your office multiple times, along with our vice president. I live 15 minutes away from the office. Everyone knows me. And even some can attest to, I answer the phone on the weekends and on holidays. When you have that type of connection, I think it's very, very important. That's what I have to say. You didn't pay me to say that either.
That was going to be my next question. Can you come to someone to pay?
No, it's the truth. It's the truth.
No, it's an amazing relationship, and to give to kind of share a little bit more with our clients. So we've been in business for. Our organization has been around for over 35 years. Our brand, Luxury Cruise Connection, is about 10, 11 years. We've been doing this for a long time. Our advisors have been doing this for many, many years as well. We have amazing experts within our organization that will make sure your experience is fantastic. But we're also part of the largest luxury consortium in the world, and that's Virtuoso. To be part of Virtuoso, you can't just sign up and pay to be part of Virtuoso. You have to be selected. It's by invitation only. It's prestigious to be part of this organization. And what it does for us is it really enhances that relationship with Seabourn that much more, because not only leverages our business with them, our buying power, let's put it that way, but also the entire networks. And because of that, we are able to add, like Jesse was saying, some additional amenities and enhance that experience so much more at no cost to you that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get directly. Just that was my 2-second elevator pitch on Luxury Cruise Connections. I want to open it up for David to ask. Go ahead, David.
Hi. First of all, I want to just give a shout out to Seabourn. I've been on your cruise. It was a Seabourn Quest down in 2015. Was a fantastic expedition. Robin West is the best. He's actually one of my landsmen. So we had dinner together on the ship. He happened to be on the ship at the time. But your expedition crew, all the scientists and everything were just outstanding. The lectures were outstanding. My only concern, and that's why I brought up the questions about being a professional photographer, is when you get on land, by the time you get set up with the tripod equipment, etc., you don't have much time to photograph. And so I'm looking for optimum time to photograph. I love what you have to offer, but I got to know that I can get that little bit extra.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for the great comments, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. But let's have those conversations. That's what I love about Seabourn and my time here. Let's connect with your advisor, and we'll talk to our operations team and see what can be done. Let's get their expertise and the whole operation side and see what we can do. We'll have those conversations, absolutely, and I'm happy to coordinate them.
Yeah, I know last time I talked to Robin before I booked to get information.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're always happy to join calls
I talked to the photographer, and we talked about equipment and all that stuff. So it was for me, it was an incredible experience. The food was great. Everything was great.
Fantastic. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. And the same goes to anybody else, just connect with your advisor and have them reach out to us, and we'll set up calls if we need to. You know, we're really excited to bring this product out, to have this ship dedicated, and would love to have all of you experience it.
I'm sorry, I think I missed, I probably didn't hear it properly. The issue on the solo pricing, you don't have solo cabin.
Yeah, so it's usually a higher solo rate because of the smaller ships, and actually like places like Antarctica on this ship tends to sell very well. You know, this year I think we're still kind of coming out of the pandemic and all of that, so there are some, but we have some sold out voyages as well. So it just becomes difficult to offer more attractive solo rates. But we can look into that as well and figure out where might be the best options.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, David, I know you've been assigned to Javi. I heard that you took Javi through the, through a very rigorous interview to make sure that he was equipped to be able to advise you.
Let's just put it this way. I like to know everything about the cruise before I leave my home. I like to know what's gonna be included, what's not gonna be included, what it costs, what I'm gonna do. I realize that expedition cruises are subject to the weather and sea conditions, and anything can change, but you know, all things being equal, this is how it would work. And so that's just who I am. My past life as a project manager, so I get into weeds, to put it bluntly.
We welcome that very much, and you can count on us. Like, look, there's a lot of stuff that we know, but there's a lot of stuff that we might need to find out as well. It's just the reality of life. But the good news is, like Jesse and Mark were saying, I mean, our relationship is so strong that, you know, if at any point in time there's something that we don't know or something that we really want to dig more into, it's just a matter of picking up the phone, setting up a conference call, Mark or whoever else within the expedition team, anybody else within the Seabourn team that we need to bring on a call, they'll be happy to jump on and make sure we answer every single, you know, detailed question you might have. So that goes for you and for anybody else that wants to really get very, very technical and very detailed on your experience.
If you're ever looking for a photographer, don't overlook me.
Sounds good. Thank you, David. Thank you. Anybody else has any other questions? I'd love to hear you. Yes.
Hi, Mark. This is Steve Coker. You mentioned briefly. Hi, how are you? You mentioned about in the square how guests can make a new reservation. You guys, Seabourn has a great product and a great way to make future reservations. If I'm correct, they get anyone who makes a reservation on board any of the Seabourn vessels gets 5% discount. Am I correct? And they have 4 years to make a decision on the cruise. So you brought it up briefly. I just wanted to add to it that so the guests know that it's a great way, no matter which Seabourn ship it's on, to go ahead and make a reservation or an open reservation on board a Seabourn cruise, and then let us know and we'll add to it.
Good point, Steve. Good point. I want to hear from Richard Kruzig. We were talking a little bit before the event. I'd love to hear your feedback. What did you think of our event, and did we convince you to go on an expedition cruise? Hold on, I gotta unmute. There you go.
Are we talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, folks. I live in Canada. Going to the Arctic is not something that appeals to my better nature. I was on a cruise, and I was in Ushuaia in 2020, and I was on a cruise going around South America when COVID hit, shut down all the ports. I was on Oceania at the time. We had, it was a bit of an interesting experience just trying to get home back then. No, I'm not interested in going in that part of the world. I am very much interested in possibly going back to the Amazon. I would love to go see some more of the South Pacific area. I've been down there many times. I've got a really crazy idea I lived and worked in Azerbaijan on the Caspian Sea for a number of years. And I took it as a Mara cruise into the Black Sea years ago. You can't get in there right now with the troubles. That is an area I want to get back to. There is a way to get a ship through Russia and into the Caspian, and nobody is in there. You could circle the Caspian area and enjoy it. You could float, you could sail through and into the Black Sea and get into Georgia, take a ride or drive or fly from Georgia over to Baku, Azerbaijan. And if your ship was there in the sea at that point in time in the Caspian, you could circle that area. That has a huge appeal to my better nature.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll definitely share that with our teams. But to touch base on like the South Pacific area, with the launch.
I've been down there. In fact, the last cruise I was on, which was on Oceania, we ended up down in French Polynesia. Yeah. There are a bunch of islands and things down there that I've never got to. I was doing a cruise with Holland America one year, and we had a bunch of flu on board, and we were not allowed to land in Samoa and some of those places. Some of the other islands that people talk about or whatever. Yeah, Easter Island, whatever. I'm interested. I've been in the Falkland Islands. It's lovely, but I am a warm-blooded person, and I am not into snow and cold and penguins right now.
Absolutely. And so just kind of keep an eye out. When we launch the next round of itineraries for Expedition, which I believe is going to be next month sometime, with the launch of Seabourn Pursuit at the end of next year, she's going to start in Antarctica, but a little teaser, she's heading that way towards the French Polynesia, all the way out to the Kimberleys and that part of the world. So more to come, but that's definitely on our radar to do with an expedition ship.
Just one last thing. I lived and worked in the Congo, and I had booked at one point in time for this past year. It was a cruise that was starting in Portugal and went down the coast to Cape Town. I was going to be on that, but there was so much paperwork involved and visa work and whatever. I backed out of that. But that is another cruise that I would like to participate in. I've done.
Richard,
I lived in the Congo. I've been in Gabon. I've been down in South Africa. We've been up in Mozambique and all that area. Seychelles Islands, all that area has been traveled. But yeah, anything that's new and interesting, I'm interested in looking at, as long as it's warm.
Let me add to that, because I just need to double check, but part of our world cruise has a 30-day, which and I think it's next year's world cruise that goes from Cape Town to Barcelona and goes up the east coast, west coast, I'm sorry, of Africa. So let me take a look at that and see exactly what it is, and I'll share it with Carlos, because that could be something that may be of interest, and you brought that idea.
I am thinking I've done Regent out of Cape Town up to Singapore, and I've done Regent out of Abu Dhabi to Athens, which is through the Suez Canal. Interesting time. We had armed guards on at the time. We had stuffed dummies and the rest of it, and the fire hoses and the rest of it, because it was a bit of a crazy time.
Richard, I'm going to say that if I'm not mistaken, that trip that you're referring to from Lisbon to Cape Town, that was probably an Azamara 21 nighter, right?
It was.
Yeah. Just so you know, we're going to start seeing less and less of those Western Africa itineraries. I was having this conversation with Josh, the president of Seabourn, just a couple of weeks ago, and I think he mentioned that he believes that 23 itinerary on the west coast of Africa is going to be one of the last times that Seabourn's going to do it. Just the demand, it's such an amazing itinerary, but the demand, I think and by the way, there's a little bit of a misconception regarding how hard it is. We were actually doing the research very recently, because we actually have quite a few guests traveling that itinerary, by the way. for an American and a Canadian, it's not that rough because the ship's umbrella visa is basically covering most of it. So it's interesting, and I'm sure that's going to be the same case for Seabourns. We just have to really get very detailed with the land operation teams for the cruise. So if in fact Seabourn is doing that, because I can't recall by memory if that's the case for the 23 one, but if that's the case, I think it's going to be the last time Seabourn's going to do it. Which I mean, it's sad because it's an amazing itinerary. It's just not many people seem to want to jump on it.
Yes, I'm looking at it now.
Most people are frightened of Africa to start with. I've lived and worked there. I know what Africa can be like. I've had malaria once. That was something you don't want. And just as I mentioned before, I am on a Seabourn cruise, picking up in Singapore in January for 29. I think it's 29 days. So we'll be circling around Asia. It's my first time on Seabourn. I have a lot of interest in seeing what it's all going to be about. I have friends who are already asking me to make sure that I get back to them because they want to know what Seabourn's like.
Yeah.
Well,
So we shall keep in touch.
I just looked here. It is for next year. It's next year's itinerary. It's April 27th next year.
Okay.
We usually cruise at least once a year. I try to get out of here for the winter. I've had my fair share of snow. I don't like it anymore. Thank you very much. I don't want to shovel my sidewalks. I don't want winter tires. I don't want to wear a parka. I want my sandals, my sun hat, and the rest of it, and I'm quite happy. So we tend to head south into places across the equator that are warm and what have you. And those are my winter destinations. I lived in Stavanger, Norway for a while. I've done some inland, we're driving around. I skied in Norway for a while, but I need to go back to Norway and do a cruise up that coastline. I've never done it. My wife is mad at me because we had the opportunity and I backed out, but at the same breath, when we lived in Africa, I never went on a safari because after working there for a month or a year or whatever, the last place I wanted to be was Africa. I wanted to get out of there. So, but I really enjoyed the cruise we had on Azamara when it went around the Black Sea. That was an interesting cruise that nobody was doing. And there is nobody that I know of that's cruising around the Caspian.
No, not right now. But I know Seabourn is wanting to get in there as soon as possible.
Well, I know you can get ships into the Caspian. It's not that hard, but that's something for the
hopefully
future.
I saw Mark there taking some notes, and if there's anybody that can propose that is him. So hopefully that'll be a case. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah, and I hope that this upcoming cruise on Seabourn works out very well because you folks have a very good reputation in the wind, but I don't know. I've never been on your ships before, and we'll see how it all works out.
That's amazing. That's great. We'll be in touch, Richard. If there's anything that we can help with, we'd like to help as well. So thank you for being here and participating. And before I let anybody go, I want to make sure, I almost forgot to mention that we did have something special for those that attended today's event. So Jesse, can you remind us, for those that attended today's event, what's the special offer that we have going on?
So we consider this like a cruise night, which is where we get an opportunity to present to your clients. So we're offering a $300 per suite shipboard credit for the bookings that come in within the next 2 weeks as of today. It really is just to say thank you for attending the presentation and booking us as a result of the presentation. I mean, we're very appreciative, even though on a product like Seabourn, where virtually everything is included, $300 goes quite a far ways. And it is combinable also with whatever virtuoso amenities are on there as well. So you can get a pretty nice and hefty shipboard credit to use in our spa or to use for our shore excursions or anything else on board the ship, with the exception of the casino or the gift shop. Well, you can use it in the gift shop too.
I like the casino.
Sounds good. All right. All right. All right. So thank you for that, by the way, Jesse. So if anybody is thinking of booking something, please let us know. And by the way, Richard, or anybody else that has already booked a Seabourn cruise, even if we weren't part of that booking at the beginning, even though if we're not making a commission for that booking, I want you to know that we're extremely committed to our core values. One of them being making our clients happy and really doing what's right for our clients. So we're all about building relationships, and we're all about really creating friendships and allowing us to create the most memorable experiences for clients. So even if we weren't involved, if you booked something we weren't involved at the beginning, but there's any value we can add, if there's anything that we can help with, we'll be more than happy to do it. And that's a way for us to start a relationship. That's amazing. And that can prompt another reservation in the future. That's amazing. But even if it doesn't, it's okay. We really are committed to making amazing experiences come true. So please count on us for that. And yes,
Carlos, we will be in touch.
Thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate that. And Marjorie, I got your message as well. We'll be in touch too. And David will be in touch too. I want to thank everybody for being here. I really do. We enjoy this time so much. We want to do more of this because we realize how valuable it is for all of you. Just a space for you guys to be able to ask questions on, without compromising the truth, right? I want to make sure that you get it, you hear it straight from the source. And that's what we're all about. That's really what we're all about. But if there's any other questions that come out after the event, if you think of something that, oh, I wish I would have asked, that's okay. Just reply back to the invitation you got to the event. That email comes straight to us, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions at any time, no matter what. And same thing goes for you're going to receive a copy of the recording of this event. Feel free to share it with your friends and family. Feel free to share with anybody that you might think might be interested in both getting to know Seabourn, getting to know Seabourn Expeditions, and getting to know Luxury Cruise Connections. So I want to
giving $300 over credit for new bookings only.
Right. So Jesse mentioned that. Yes. So listen, I want to be very, very respectful of everybody's time. I know that we went a little bit over time, but we were having a lot of fun, and I hope it was worth it. So if anybody has any other questions, let us know. And if not, that's okay too. We'll be happy to connect later.
How big is your casino?
How big is the casino?
So on the Venture and Pursuit, we don't have a casino, but our ocean ships do. I'm not sure on the size.
Well, they're not huge. I can tell you, I just did a tour last week on the smaller Odyssey, Sojourn, and Quest. You have 3 tables. You have a roulette table, and you have 2 tables for blackjack. And there are probably, I want to say, about 6 or 7 slot machines. On the Encore and the Ovation, you have the same number of tables and just a few more slot machines. So it's not very large, but it is pretty big considering the size of the ship.
Sadly, no crap table.
No.
Okay, good enough.
Awesome. All right. All right. Well, so that's I guess that's it for today. Mark, Jesse, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Coming today. Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate it. I like I said, I truly want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the partnership, for everything that you guys do for us, for everything that you do to make sure our clients have an amazing experience. We'll do another one of these very soon. Thank you, all of you that came, all of our guests and our advisors, our team members that participated today. Thank you so much for making this a great event, and hope to see you soon on the next one.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.